You're stuck at home in quarantine. 5 o'clock. Why not have a drink with me?
Hey everybody, happy Sunday. Hope everybody's having a nice weekend, a nice cool Sunday today after a couple of hot days. I think it's supposed to heat back up starting tomorrow, but it was quite nice this morning to open up the windows, put in the window fans, just blowing some cool fresh air after some kind of crazy thunderstorms last night. So weather was nice, got outside a little bit and did a little bit of yard work. Helen was out there longer than I was, but was able to clean up the yard a little bit, clean up the patio a little bit, just, keep chipping away, maintain little by little. I think both of us want to get better at, not doing like 6 hours of yard work once a month, but rather doing like half hour here, half hour there, just to kind of keep up with it, and it's less overwhelming that way and doesn't totally tire you out and kill a whole weekend day. So it's something we aspire towards, but our tendencies towards procrastination and laziness on the weekend often get in our way. But what are you gonna do? I was just looking at my calendar. I started this crazy experiment of doing a unique cocktail every night at 5 o'clock in quarantine on April 5th, which was a Sunday. And so yesterday wrapped up 9 weeks. 9 weeks of that, or 63. I only missed one night. I didn't do a cocktail on Instagram, at least this past Tuesday, for Blackout Tuesday on Instagram. So that makes today the 63rd night out of 64 days. It has been a ton of fun. I'm probably gonna ease my foot off the gas a little bit, at least in terms of new and unique cocktails, because after having made and some of these nights I've made more than one different type too. But after making over 60 different cocktails over the last 2 months, I want to go back to the ones that I like the most, and that's been keeping me from that a little bit. So definitely gonna keep doing Quarantiki Tuesday. We'll probably do a weekend Instagram sort of thing on Friday or Saturday night, and I'll pop on still a lot of days to make a cocktail, but it might not be a unique cocktail, so I can go back to some of my favorites. And I'm thinking about maybe putting together like a top 10 list, top 10 cocktails, and maybe work my way through those. There are a couple that I've made here that I think snuck their way up there. La Rosita is one that comes to mind. This is that tequila and Campari drink that was really good, and a couple of others. So that's what I'm thinking about. But we're also tonight going to wrap up Negroni Week. So Negroni Week is the first week in June every year, June 1st to June 7th. Today is June 7th. And so all week I've been making different variations and versions of the Negroni, starting with the classic Negroni. Actually starting before that with the Americano. We made a Negroni. Last night we made a Negroni slushy. We made a Negroni Spagliato earlier in the week. We made a bitter French, which is sort of like a Negroni French 75 mashup. And then all good stuff. I love it. And basically anything with Campari, I am on board with. And so tonight we're going to make one of, I would say, the more famous Negroni variations, although interestingly does not have Campari. So this is known as a white Negroni. And the classic specs of this are gin, which is typical Negroni spirit in order to base it. And then instead of the sweet vermouth, you'll hear this is a white Negroni, so this is basically taking out all of that red color from the Negroni. We use Lillet Blanc. Lillet Blanc is a French aperitif. This is going to be like a French version of the Negroni, actually. So this is a French aperitif. Has some interesting flavors. I tasted mine a little bit ago. This has been in it's kind of a version of a vermouth with a little bit more herbaceousness to it, maybe a little bit sweeter than your typical dry vermouth, and it's very good. Like most vermouths, like all vermouths, they don't last forever. So they're a fortified wine, but they're usually, I think this is like 17% ABV, and you definitely lose some of its luster because it's close to a wine. It's closer to a wine than it is to a liquor. So I keep it in the fridge, and If you keep it in the fridge, depending on how often you open it, vacuum sealing is good. That's something that I haven't really like gotten into in terms of my vermouths and bottles that I have in the back of my fridge. But they're supposed to stay good, 6 to 8 weeks, couple months. You can maybe stretch them a little bit longer. This has been longer than that, but I tasted some before and I think it tastes okay, so I'm going to go with it. But anyway, that's the Lillet. So this is the vermouth portion of the Negroni. And then we have your friend and mine, Suze. Suze is maybe the craziest thing that you can have. It's just like a crazy, crazy thing. So this is I guess it's a bitter liqueur. I guess it's close to the Amaro family, but it's basically all gentian root. This is a gentian bomb. And it's super bitter, but it has such an interesting flavor. I've used it, I think, twice over the last 2 months in my cocktails. But it just brings like so much bitterness to it. It has, if you take a look, it has this sort of like just like golden yellow color to it. And it's really grown on me, but it's just sort of like an earthy, grassy, and then that like sort of bark, that like, I don't know how to describe it other than that like gentian root flavor, which really comes through. Almost like you get like almost like a root beer type of like birch sort of influence to it. There's no like cola flavor at all. It's not root beer in that direction, but anyway, super interesting and kind of crazy ingredient, and it's classic in the white Negroni. So what's tricky is getting the proportions of this right. Some people do just your like Negroni proportions, Negroni ratios, 1 to 1 to 1, equal parts everything. But I don't think that's quite right. And then I think as people play around, and I was on Reddit earlier today and just did a search of r/cocktails and looked at all the Negroni recipes that people seem to prefer. And there seems to be some agreement on doing 1.5 ounces of gin, 1 ounce of the Lillet, and then 3/4 of an ounce of the Suze. So the Suze is definitely the most dominant ingredient. And so that'll come through even though you're using less of it. So we're going to give that a go and see how it goes, and then we can adjust from there and make additional ones in the future if we so choose. But that's where we're going to start. I also pulled out Helen's Citadel gin because I might kill the Beefeater on this one. Let's see. So I'm going to try to get 1.5 ounces, and I'm pretty bad at actually judging how much is left in a bottle, but ooh, that is pretty much exactly 1.5 ounces of our Beefeater gin. So say goodbye to this. I'm going to need to grab another bottle of London Dry. I don't know if my next bottle is going to be Beefeater, or I might do like a Tanqueray or a Bombay. Not sure. I mean, Beefeater is classic. It's cheap. It's good. And probably I like to keep around the like a good London Dry. I have the Plymouth gin for something that has the Plymouth style, a little sweeter. And then Helen likes this French gin that is just has a lot more aromatics and herbalness. And maybe not as like juniper heavy as the Beefeater, but still good. Anyway, that's that. I'm going to take my Lillet. I'm going to do 1 ounce of that. And, whoa. Beautiful. And then 3/4 of an ounce of the Suze. I'll do like a heavy 3/4 of an ounce because I like it. And this is called a white Negroni. It's not clear. It's more like a pale yellow Negroni because the Lillet has a little bit of color to it. And then as we saw, the Suze really has that sort of like, I wouldn't say it's a deep golden color, but it definitely has the golden color to it. And we'll grab our ice. So I'm going to stir this, and then I'm also going to serve this on a big block of ice. Again, I think the bitterness from the Suze will benefit from just sort of like sitting and evolving a little bit with that with a big ice cube that'll slowly melt as you're drinking it. And so that's that. Oop, biker driving by, Dixie getting mad. I don't know if you can hear her. Let's give this a stir. So we've got Peg, Tom, Ben, Keith, and Megan in the chat. Good to see all of you. Hope you guys are all having a very nice weekend. Now I will say I've made the white Negroni once before, and it wasn't my favorite. Didn't love it, so I'm trying it again now. Again, I altered the flavors a little bit, and also I've just come around and I've acclimated to the Suze, I think, some more in a way that it was a little bit more shocking when the first time I made it was the first time I had Suze, the first time I bought a bottle of Suze. And so I think I was just a little shocked at what I got, and over time, as I've experimented with the Suze a little bit more, I mean, look, that's how much Suze I've had in my life. So, not a lot, but I've come to kind of like it. So, strain this over 1 large cube of ice. Some people do a grapefruit twist garnish. I'm going to do just a lemon. And spray that over. Get it on the outside. Drop it in. Happy Negroni week, the white Negroni. Yeah, these ratios are good. I think I really think those two factors make me enjoy this drink a lot more than the first time I have it. The two factors being improving the ratios a little bit, making it a little bit more gin heavy, backing off on the Suze, and 2, me just liking Suze more than I did when I first tried it, acclimating to it, developing that taste for the Suze and the bitterness and the gentian. And it's a good drink. It's still not my favorite drink. I gravitate towards the Campari. That's my favorite part of the Negroni. It's why I love the Negroni. And so to have a Negroni variation without that flavor just isn't going to be my favorite. But it's definitely a drink that I enjoy. I'm happy to drink. I'm happy to enjoy. And there we have it. That's good. It's like the right amount of sweetness to it. I do think those are the perfect ratios. 1.5 ounces of gin, ounce of Lillet, 3/4 ounce of Suze, dials it in, and that's very nice. So, all right. Otherwise, going into the evening, we have macaroni and cheese on the menu for this evening, which I like to. Helen's like guilty pleasure when I'm like traveling out of work, which doesn't happen anymore because we don't travel, we can't go anywhere because we're stuck in our houses. But back in the world where we could travel, and sometimes Helen would be home when I'm not. Her sort of guilty pleasure and what she would make, she also hates cooking, what she makes for herself is like boxed macaroni and cheese, which I don't think I've actually really in my entire life. And I mean, my mom and dad are in the chat. We didn't have like we didn't do Kraft macaroni and cheese or anything growing up. I don't remember eating that as a kid. I don't know. But anyway, what I do enjoy, I mean, who doesn't like a super good cheesy pasta dish? And so I do enjoy making like good baked from scratch macaroni and cheese, make the bechamel and the cheese sauce and put it in and get a nice breadcrumb on top. And then back when I was a vegetarian, I had this cookbook called The Accidental Vegetarian, which is really good recipes that like, oh look, they just happen to be like meat free. And there's this recipe in there that we used to make all the time. I remember living in New Haven, we made it all the time. Which has, it's like a classic baked macaroni and cheese, but it includes sun-dried tomatoes in it, as well as like halved grape tomatoes. And so you get, it like brings a little color to it, which is nice, but then you also just get these like small little pieces of of flavor, like sort of the deep, delicious flavor from the sun-dried tomatoes, and then like a burst of freshness when you bite into one of the cherry tomatoes. So that's always been Helen's favorite. I like it. I like it as much without it, but I'm happy to put it in. So that's our plan for tonight. I'm going to whip that up, make a good mac and cheese, which Helen terms fancy macaroni and cheese, as opposed to her non-fancy boxed macaroni and cheese, which she sometimes like cuts a hot dog up into, which I like hot dogs, but again, that's just like a weird thing in my mind. But Helen's not here, not listening. Don't tell her that we are sharing all of her guilty pleasures and deep dark secrets. But that's a good question, right? Like when your significant other is out, what is your go-to? What is your meal? Mine is usually, if like Helen's away traveling, I'll always get, part of it is like we follow basically a gluten-free diet for dinner. So when she's out, I'll probably find like the best pizza that I can get and just get a big pizza from somewhere and eat that. And that's what I do. But anyway, that's our plan for this evening. Last week of school for us in Boston coming up. High school is like almost all wrapped up. They have a lot of kids are actually done depending on whether they pass their courses or not and pass their final exams or not. There are some that are getting like another extra tutoring and support in classes to retake their final assessments again this week. And then in the middle school, the last week of instruction in classes this week also. I don't know, I talked a few weeks ago about how in 8th grade we were learning about exponential functions, and I created a lesson about COVID and how it's an example of exponential functions and how knowing about the math allows us to make better decisions about public policy. And it turned out to be a pretty good lesson. I think it's good. I don't know if it's like it's the last lesson of the year. I think a lot of schools are like not even doing all the lessons this week, so I don't know how many kids will actually see it or get it, but I think it's a good lesson, and you can go and find it on, everything's public on Uncommon Schools' K-8 Learning Hub on the website where everything's posted there. All right, so that's all I got for us today. I'm going to get started on dinner and I guess get ready for the week here. But otherwise, thank you for joining me on this weekend's drinks.
It's 5 o'clock. Why not have a drink with me?
This has gotten even better as it's diluted a tiny bit more with the ice. So this is good. I'm pro this. I'm gonna find some more cocktails with Suze. All right, take care, everyone.